Hello there, it's Sarah with Counseling Through the Chaos. I am back to do a little update and give a little information on a topic that I haven't talked about yet. So I hope everybody is doing well. Maybe now that the pandemic is kind of hopefully winding down a little bit, things are getting better. Hopefully things are getting better for you. I know there's been a lot of longer lasting issues that we are having to deal with COVID, and there's been, quite a lot of loss and change in the world and in our families. Mine in particular, it's been a whirlwind. So in a year's time, I've left a job, started a private practice, become a full-time homeschooling mom, and lost 2 family members within 7 days, and dealt with my own personal grief there, as well as trying to deal with the pandemic, the being closed in all the time, helping my children deal with all of those things and the stresses of being at home and not getting to go to school and not having to have sports be the same and be with their friends the same. And then also my own parent being diagnosed with some severe illnesses, and being separated from them. So there has been a lot just in my life as a licensed and certified counselor. I'm a human being, and I am not immune from grief. I'm not immune from anger. I'm not immune from depression, anxiety. I am still human. And maybe one of the reasons why people like to actually talk to me or listen, I don't know, that's what I hear, is because I do experience all of these things, and I'm usually pretty open about it. So today I thought, sorry, it's allergy season, I would address this whole idea of grieving and loss. And so a lot of people think that, oh, I can only grieve, or I only grieve when someone dies, or, a pet dies. And that's actually not true. You can grieve anytime there is a significant change in your world, a trauma of some sort, which would be a change. It could be a negative event or a negative impact in your life. It could be a loss of a job. It could be a loss of a friendship. It could be a loss of a marriage. It could be a loss of a home. It could be moving from a home to another home. Loss can be anything. For children, when their parents get separated or divorced, children will grieve the loss of their house the way that it was, their home the way that it felt, their family the way that it traditionally was before. It's a loss of something that was, or the loss of something that we thought could be. So, for example, if you have, if you're young and you lose a significant other to addiction, an overdose, there could be the loss, not only of the physical loss right now of your loved one, your boyfriend or girlfriend or whomever it might be, but there's also the loss of that possible future, a life that you had thought maybe you would have. So grieving is a process of working through something we feel has been taken away, something that has significantly, drastically changed our world, our environment, our perception of who we are and what our existence is like and how it's going to be moving forward. So, for example, I grieved, and people think this is absolutely ridiculous. I grieved the loss of the fact that I would never have a daughter. I just had it in my mind I was always going to have a boy and a girl, and we're only having 2 kids. And then, I have had a lot of issues with pregnancy and all of these things. And I ended up getting pregnant and had both of my kids within a year of each other. And when I found out that my second child was also a boy, I grieved the loss that I would never have a mother-daughter relationship with my own daughter. And people thought that that was absolutely crazy. Well, it's not, because it's a loss. It was something that I had to accept that I thought could be. It was an expectation that I had built up. So when we're talking about grieving, like I said, it's a process. And I know there's the Kubler-Ross stages of grief and all of that. And really now in mental health, we don't really discuss grief as a stage. It's a process. I like to think of it as a journey. We're on a journey in life, and we look behind us and the road has the bumps and the rocks and the gravel and the flowers and the pretty things, that all of those things that mark different things that have happened on our path. And grief is one of those, trenches that we'll look back on and see that this was a process. This is when I was in denial. This is when I just was so angry at that person for doing this and leaving me. Or I'm angry at God, or I'm angry at the driver of the car, that hit my loved one, or whatever it might be. You can have anger, you can have severe sadness and depression. But it's a moving, working process. And what I tell the people that I work with is grief never stops. And when we hear this saying of, well, you just need to get over it now. It's been a year. Why are you still sad? Why are you letting that bother you? Because I'm having a grieving day. We have good days and we have not so good days anyway. And with our grief is the same way. Some days it's a good grieving day. We can think about happy memories, or we're not thinking about it at all. But then we have bad grieving days sometimes. And this is, as we get further in the process. But the important thing to remember when there's a loss in your life is you have to work through it. If you get stuck being angry about things and you don't talk it through, and maybe you need to just talk to a friend, or maybe you do need to seek some therapy. If you are so stuck in your sadness that it becomes chronic depression, or it's so prolonged that you can't get out of bed, those are red flags. So you have to be careful that you don't get stuck in a stage, that you're always moving in the grieving process. Now, you might move back and forth. You might be angry, and then you might be sad, and then you might be in denial a little bit. But if you're moving back and forth, and it's a working grief, and you're processing, and you're coming to terms, and you're thinking and analyzing, even challenging yourself. Maybe, I have clients that are, in the beginning, they are just never seeing themselves ever going to their person's grave, ever. But then we get to the point to where, maybe they do feel like that's okay. And they go and they try it, and then we assess, how did that feel? Was that a positive way for you to cope? Is it a good feeling, or is that a trigger for you? It's not helpful. And everybody handles those those things differently, and they feel differently about, having someone's ashes at home, or maybe they want to spread the person's ashes. I have clients who have them made into jewelry and they wear it all the time. So there's no right or wrong with the process of grieving, is my point. The only thing that's wrong is not expressing it, avoiding it, and getting stuck in a place that's unhealthy, mentally and emotionally. So some people write letters, some people, look at photographs. Just talking and remembering is important. Keeping the person alive is partly our job, or working through the fact that, okay, these parents are no longer together, but that doesn't mean the love for the child disappears. Allowing for something to be able to be held on to, something positive to grasp. And ignoring feelings and ignoring problems is the worst thing that you can do. So talk, especially with children. Saying things like, so-and-so went to sleep. Not a good phrase. No, so-and-so, they died. This is what happened. This is what death means. This is the difference between death and alive. Kids need to know these kinds of things. I am the kind of person who, if it's someone that, like, for example, when one of my loved ones recently died, my children went with my family to the funeral, and they had never been to a funeral before. But you have to teach that as a parent, and you have to answer questions and prepare them for the reality of what this life is about. Yes, there's life and there's birth, but there's also the really, hard stuff like death and what that means. And also, what does it look like when your family comes together to mourn and to celebrate that life? In every family, it looks different. And maybe even for different people in your family, it's different based on their traditions or where they live in the United States or in the world. So, keeping things from children is not a good idea. Telling them all kinds of, scary details, not necessary, but being honest to the point of their level is a good thing. Definitely, I would recommend them understanding so that they know how to learn the mourning process. Another really good thing I love to do, especially if you're talking about kids, is, the foundations of therapeutic work is in expression of emotions and feelings. And so it's always the thing that I start with kids, is talking about addressing, identifying, expressing feelings, questions, thoughts. So with kids, talking about these things through a story, always my favorite. So I have some suggestions for grief books, and maybe even talking about like changes in a family, or why does our family look this way and now these people's family looks this way, or we're just different in some way. Maybe the family is getting a divorce, or maybe someone is being adopted into a family. So any kinds of these large changes in a family that could lead to some grieving, I have some books for that too. So starting with that, this is a really great book. I love reading this with my students. Families, Families, Families. It's by Suzanne Lang and Max Lang. Cute story. Talks about the different kinds of families. You know, some have lots of pets, some have just a cactus. You know, some have stepsisters and brothers, some families are adopted, you know, and it's got some cute humor along with it. This one's a really great book. I love doing this. And then what I like to do after I read this and discuss how everybody's family looks different, but it's the most important thing is that we love each other. That's the whole point of the story. Is I'll even have them do like a family tree activity, craft activity. This is a really good one. This is a Scholastic. It's got a lot of really diverse pictures. It talks all about families. That's what it's called. And basically what families are. This one's a Scholastic. It's by Shelley Rotner and Sheila M. Kelly. So that's a really good one to talk about families. And of course, you know, you can't get away without a Todd Parr book. He has books about this one, the family book. He also has a book about feelings. Of course, he always has, you know, really fun pictures that kids relate to. So this is a really good one. As far as feelings, Todd Parr has some really good feelings books. He has the Feel Good book, and then he has the Feelings book. There's this one, which is My Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss. This one you can use with any age, really young too, because it identifies feelings with color. And so like your younger kiddos, you could use this story with and talk about your feelings about your loved one or the changes that are happening. Sometimes when there's a death in the family or of a friend or someone close to you, neighbor, young children will start to worry or be afraid that death could happen to them or it could happen to someone else that they know, which, yes, that is a legitimate worry. It's something that does happen to everybody. So it might be good to address the feeling of fear in just specifically. So this is a really good one. Bear Feels Scared. It talks about the feeling scared specifically. You could also discuss worry. If it's more of a thing that they're just thinking about a lot. So there's a lot of good books out there about being worried. This one's really good. Ruby Finds a Worry. There's The Worry Monster. Those can be found Scholastic, Amazon, your library. As far as books about death specifically, so if you have a grandparent that has passed, this is a really good one. It's Understanding Loss, A Place in My Heart by Annette Aubrey. And it's about a boy who loses his grandpa and how he feels, how his family feels. You can see it has really good pictures of expression, what they do to help remember and talk about the loss of grandpa, what they miss about him. Creates that dialogue that it's a natural thing to discuss and it's okay. There's also a really good letter with suggestions at the end for teachers and parents. That's a good one. When I work with groups or kids individually, still, a lot of times I do this with groups, but you can read this with anyone. It's When Dinosaurs Die. And it goes through different, you can see that I have little tabs where I like to read it. Feelings about death specifically. It will have, what does it mean to be alive versus something being dead. Why would someone die? And you can bring up these topics that are really difficult sometimes for us to just discuss on our own. There's also When Dinosaurs Divorce. I use that one as well with children. Really good dialogue. My friend bought this one for me when my children experienced the loss of our first pet. One of our cats we had had for like 14 years, and then we had another cat. We had two cats. The one died, and then a year later the other one died. And so this was a really great book, Cat Heaven, and it was so good. We read this story probably, at least every day for several weeks, to help talk through how we felt about losing our cat, Joe Buddy and Kobe. And it's just such a cute story about losing a pet, specifically cats, if you're a cat person. But how the cat comes back and it watches over its owner way up there. So good. So good. And then this is a book I have had for years. I found this at a counseling conference, and it's called A Story for Hippo, a book about loss by Simon Patak and Allison Bartlett. I'm sure you could get it on Amazon, but it's about the natural process of dying. So, if someone dies like a grandparent of old age, a great grandparent, an uncle, because they're getting older in the process. It also goes through feelings of being isolated and angry about the death and, afraid to move on and, just severe sadness. So the monkey in the story, he experiences a lot of those very normal feelings. So this story is awesome. It's a harder one to read, because it's intense, but it's really great for kids, young teens, and it helps us to see that there is some light. Monkey does find some ways to carry on the memory of Hippo and to feel better about her being gone. So those are some really awesome stories that I would like to share with you. That if you are, experiencing grief of any kind, loss of any kind, especially during this past year with so many people who have died because of COVID, but then other reasons too, and just the change in the way we as a society are able to mourn, by, can we have gatherings? Can we not have gatherings? The process that so many people have been dying, that, crematories are backed up and people are having to wait for their loved ones to get their ashes. These are all things that are very new, but they're very real. And there's not a one size fits all, and there's not a really easy answer for all of it, except for that it takes time. Try not to isolate yourself. Reach out, find support, either from a counselor, a friend, a family member, someone you trust, an online forum, online therapist. You can call your place of work, and they may have an EAP service where you can get some grieving counseling for free, possibly a few sessions. But do not avoid grief, whatever it may be: divorce, a pet, a loved one, a trauma. Do not avoid it. Do not isolate yourself. You need to move through the grieving process. It does take time, and it's very individualized. There's no right or wrong. But I'm here to say that I personally understand. I've personally gone through it, still going through it currently. And I know that it won't be the last time that I have to. And I work with people every day who are experiencing similar things, older and younger. So you're not alone. And I hope that this has been helpful in some way. And I wish you happiness and health. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.